excited about our latest live LinkedIn Live broadcast, and I have a couple of guests. Actually, they are members of SimplyPHP. We have Nick Trigatti. Nick is one of our, I think he's actually our most senior developer here. Nick, you're the most senior, correct?
Well, I've been here the longest.
So modest, of course. How long have you been? 12 years? 11
Uh,
years?
13 and a half, about.
13 and a half. All right. Cool. And we also have Kyler Miles is our content manager. Kyler, how are you, my man?
Good. Nice to see both of you here.
Nice to see you too. So what you're going to be doing, Kyler, you're going to be listening to Nick and I's conversation, and if there's any comments or questions in the live stream, you'll sort of interrupt us and let us know, right?
You got it. I'll be making sure you guys are aware who's involved, anyone saying hi, questions, concerns, and I'll pop in and out.
Cool. Appreciate it. So, hey, Kyler, by the way, both Nick and Kyler are at home. Kyler, what do you do to promote our lives? Like, so basically we have a live broadcast every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. Whether it's on my personal LinkedIn page, which we've been doing for a few weeks now, or if it's on the company SimplyPHP LinkedIn page, which I believe we have over 10,000 followers. What do you do to promote this, for example? What did you do to promote this live broadcast today?
So we like to brainstorm kind of the end of the week, beginning of the week. So normally around then we will tease the topic of the video. A lot of times on this live stream too, Tony, you'll mention what next week's live will be if we are prepared for the topic. So it really is just consistently and constantly reminding them that Wednesdays, 12 p.m. Eastern time, we are going live. And we are going to be bringing value to you guys. So it's a series of videos, texts, photos, just anything that we can do to promote this. And it's across all of our social channels. So really just getting in their face kind of and bombarding them with all the different types of content we produce.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. I tune into all live broadcasts of anyone that I'm connected to, whether it's right on the spot or later on, and I try to see how many viewers they have, and sometimes there's only 2 or 3 viewers for a lot of the people that I follow. Actually, I shouldn't say that. There's probably I have 4 connections that go live on a regular basis, and there's anywhere from like 4 to 10 viewers. I think we're averaging around 20. Per episode. So I was curious how you how you promoted it. Do you actually create an event also and send that out to SimplyPHP's followers? One of those LinkedIn events?
We've kind of tried many different ways to create engagement. We've done events. We've done just special video promotions if it's a special broadcast. Like it's, so really the approach we have is we test a lot of things to see what works, and what works for a certain time may not work for next week or the following week. So it's always innovating and always testing and just engaging with people in different ways. People consume content in different ways. We're different learners. Some are readers, some are visual learners. So I try to always bring that message in 3 different ways. So video, audio, and then picture or written form. And we will create an event, we will make its own video, and every week will be different because we don't want people to feel, we're just doing the same thing over and over again. Of course, sometimes we go back to what works, and if it works, it works. But I'm always trying to innovate and just keep our audience on our toes. Like, we're also trying to entertain, not only educate, right? A little bit. We have fun when we're in the office. Now we're at home and we still have fun. But we try to bring that out, during these live streams and show people who we are. And that's why I love these broadcasts, because they get to see exactly the type of personality traits and who we are as a company.
Cool. Are you having fun right now as we speak? Are you having fun?
Yeah.
You are?
I never get to
Okay.
see you guys anymore, so it's I'm alive when it comes like on these broadcasts, right? It's I
Yeah.
get to see you guys, get to chat. I think it's a really cool topic that you guys are gonna be talking about today. So
Don't
yeah,
change the
like
subject.
I
Yeah, I love talking to you too. You're awesome on camera and on video. You got a great look. You got a great voice. You're always engaged. So yeah, it's great to do these with you. I wanted to just mention in promoting these live broadcasts, I know that um, usually a couple days before the live, you would send me a thumbnail, sort of like a promotional thumbnail for me to share, which I've been doing. But the one that you created yesterday, I didn't share it. You know why? Because I
why?
found that those thumbnails were getting more views than the actual live video. Like I would post that thumbnail promotion like on Monday and say, "Hey, make sure to join us Wednesday at noon Eastern time for our live," and there would be like 600 or 700 views of that picture,
Hmm.
and maybe 300 or 400 views of the video. So I was thinking maybe maybe not to share that promotional thumbnail anymore and just wait. So this is what I'm trying today. So maybe
But
I
I
won't.
love that because we, like you just said, Tony, we're in it. We're always innovating, always trying new things to try to engage with more people, and we
Yeah.
always strive to bring value to them, right? So I love that. It's that's good insight to know. Like maybe we should
Yeah.
change our approach a bit for the next live, and but that's what makes
Yeah.
it fun, at least for me, to always like challenge myself and trying to get more viewership on this platform.
Yeah, that's pretty cool to try and boost up the views of the live, which is great. I had a misconception of how many people would be tuning in to lives. I thought there would be hundreds of people. I thought there'd be like 300 or 400 people tuning in instead of 20. I don't know how many are tuning in now. I'm afraid to ask. Should I ask?
Do you want to know?
Yes, I want to know.
Oh, we're at 15 people. So, like you
15.
said,
Okay.
we average between 15 and 20, I would say,
Okay.
per live.
All right. That's
But
great. Those
what's
people
really
are probably
interesting?
really interested. Sorry to interrupt, but
Yeah. Oh no, I was just going to say that after a week, right? I always go back in the previous week to see, in the past from Wednesday to Wednesday how well we did. It's in the thousands of viewership sometimes, right? So even though they're not tuning in for the actual like live broadcast, they are watching it. Sometimes
nice.
50%, 100% of the time. So a lot of our audience is engaging with it. It's just not exactly at 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Ah, okay, great.
So for me as a content manager, that is still successful because we're getting our message across. But you're right. It's on average, we're probably about 15 to 20 people.
Oh, that's great though. You know what? That makes me feel better. So the 15 or 20 people are awesome because they're tuning in live because they happen to have the time to tune in live. But if 1,000 or a couple thousand people are viewing the actual video, that's great news. That's fantastic. And we
Yeah.
also make little micro clips of the Nick. I hope you're really enjoying this, buddy. Thanks for coming, by the way. I really appreciate. Are you having fun? That's the question.
It's all good. I'm enjoying myself.
All right, good. I'm gonna get to you soon. Don't worry. See, Kyler is very easy to talk to, and he's not that you aren't, but I mean, it's easy to get carried away. What was I saying? Oh yeah, micro clips. So you make, Kyler, you make a lot of. Let's just wrap this up quickly. But you make a lot of micro clips of the live video. So let's say this is a 1 hour live video. You can grab little gems and little golden nuggets of the video, and then you can post them also, right? That's what you're doing, correct?
Yeah, so a lot of those videos are actually doing better than the live broadcast, those hidden gems, because
Nice.
I will watch the hour live broadcast like, 3 or 4 times, and I'll find all the best parts, the best moments, the highlights, if you will,
Yeah.
and create its own video. And that video could be as like 10 minutes or 30 seconds, depending on what you say.
Mm-hmm.
And those do very, very well. And it's just straight, punch to the value. and people really engage with it. People share it, people like it. So those videos do very, very well. And we focus a lot on that because, you know, an hour-long clip, not everybody's going to be as interested in it, but the people that are, it brings value. And then when we produce those highlight videos, those micro clips, then everybody can get a you know, an idea, a taste of what it is that we do here every week. So yeah, that's
Cool.
really where most of my day is focused on, those micro clips,
All right.
day in and day out.
Okay, cool. All right. Nick, my man.
What's going on?
Not much. How you doing?
Good, good.
Okay, cool. Hey Nick, I'm glad that you're able to carve out an hour of your day because I love the topic today. The topic is version control, right? Version control, and it's a non-technical. Anytime I'm involved with a conversation with you, you know that it's not going to be too technical. So I'd like to not dumb it down, but I'd like to kind of have a conversation about version control that is going to benefit people who are not developers, people who are not programmers, or not. They may own a business, or they may manage a business that has a web application somewhere or website somewhere. But I'd like them to understand what version control is, because a lot of times I talk to people and I say, well, what type of version control are you using? So when a new prospect will call up, and one of my first questions is, what type of version control are you using? And I would say maybe 40% of the time they will say, oh, I don't even know what you're talking about. So it took me a while to learn what version control was and all of the steps. It's over a decade now, so obviously I know what it is. But can you take me through? So let's say that you are a programmer and you're working on one of our clients' websites. How does it work? What do you do? Let's say you're going to add a new feature, okay, to the client's website. Can you take me through the steps? Like, do you just add a new feature, throw it online live, and hope that it works out? Like, how does that work?
15 years ago, yes.
Okay.
That would be it. No matter how many devs you had on the project, somebody would get their hands on the code, change a file, and FTP it, upload it to the server, and that's it. And can you hear me?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, buddy? No, I was having a hard time hearing you. I tried turning up the volume, but didn't work. So.
All right. Well, no, it's just before. At least, like early in my career, you'd have the code locally on your computer, you'd make a change and then upload it to the server, and that would be it. And, if you were more than one person working on the project, let's say you were both working on the same file, and, you upload your stuff, and the other guy doesn't know you made changes, and he changes the same file and then uploads his stuff, your stuff is gone. Because he overrode it with his stuff.
Okay.
So
just to back up a little bit, Nick, when you say that you develop it locally, again.
Sorry, like on your own computer,
Okay.
You make the changes. You have a version of the site or the application running on your own computer that, like, only you're accessing.
Okay.
And so like that's a perfect example. Two people work on the same file, and they each upload stuff without grabbing the other person's changes, and there you go. You're left with one version at the end, and it's either mine or his.
Okay, so that's in the past, right? That's 13 years ago, and I think Dreamweaver might have been involved. So, but what about today? So take us through today. Now, is it safe to say that pretty much every developer develops locally? And when I say locally, meaning they have a version of the code on their own local computer, and they are developing or they're making their own changes on their own computer. Is that Accurate?
That's best practice. That's
Okay.
what we do. That's what a lot of other companies do. I'm sure there's some outliers who don't, but that's like best practice.
Okay. So let's go with what we do, which is
Yeah.
best practice. So we do that. Now, doesn't that um, create a vulnerability? Like, so if the developer works like a 10-hour day and leaves it on his local, and then someone breaks into his house and steals his computer, then all that work's gone, right?
In theory, yeah.
Okay. So,
Again, if you want to stay with best practice, um, this is where you're using version control.
okay. So
You're using
that,
version control system.
so take us through the version control system starting in on the developer's computer, like on his own local. Where do you go from there?
Um, let's take a quick step back first and
Okay.
just uh, there's a couple of version control systems out there, software. Uh, Git is pretty much the most popular one. It's the one we use. It's the one a lot of companies use. There's a lot of like online hosting services for it. So let's just say from here on out, if I say version control or Git, I'm talking about Git.
Yeah, understood. Because that's the one that we use. That's the one we should focus on. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, the whole project lives on a Git repository, Git server somewhere. There's public ones are GitHub, Bitbucket. You can use GitLab. You can have your own servers like we do. We have our own GitLab servers. So as a developer, I'm given a project. They're like, you worked on this before. Here's the new feature we need to add. Step one is get the latest version of the code.
Get the latest version of the code, which resides on Git.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would,
Which is a code repository, right?
right.
All right.
There you go. And so basically, I would pull the changes or grab the changes, either way, to just have the latest version of whichever version is currently running, is currently the developmental version. Like, let's say, I guess we're gonna have to take another quick step back. Git allows you to have, again, it's version control. It allows you to have multiple branches, multiple versions. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of what happens is, your main branch is what is the code that you're putting on your production server. And then all the developers are working off a develop branch, which may include new features, recently finished stuff, things that are currently in testing, pretty much unreleased production code, but code that's either been approved or tested. It's like scheduled for the next release.
Okay, is that staging?
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
like your staging branch, your develop branch.
Okay, so to keep things simple, you have the live production website, okay,
Yeah,
that everything's live. Then you have another production, no, excuse me, you have another server, another code base that is basically staging where the latest changes are, and they're not pushed to live production yet. For whatever reason, like the client might still be testing, or
yeah,
you have a system where you only push to production once a week or twice a
exactly,
month or something like that.
exactly.
Okay, cool.
So if I'm starting a new feature, I want to grab the latest version of that staging branch. That's
Yeah.
the staging version of the code, because obviously I'm creating a feature for the next release or a future release.
Is there always one person that's in charge of making sure that that version is up to date and making sure that the latest actual version is there? Or is it like, everyone's just pushing changes to that server?
Um, well, I mean, in theory, there's always at least one. There can be more people who manage it,
Okay.
but we'll get into it a bit more later. But that's the beauty of the version control system, is that um, you can have access, you can give permissions only to certain people to merge the code in to these release branches, to these staging branches, production branches.
Okay.
So
So it's a real controlled environment. Again, under best practices,
yeah,
it's a controlled environment.
it's not just people uploading files, and like it literally takes an action for somebody to say, okay, let's accept this code and combine it into the release branch.
Okay, nice. All right. So we're at 3 levels now, right? We have the local code on your computer.
Yeah,
Then you have the dev server or the staging environment,
yeah,
and then you have the live production, right?
that sounds right.
Okay, cool. So how again with the best practice, I think you were kind of going down that road, but on the developer's local computer, how long does his or her work stay on there before it gets safely pushed to the dev server and no longer vulnerable to a computer crashing or getting stolen, laptop getting stolen at Starbucks type of thing?
Yeah, well, again, that's kind of like in the process when you get that latest version of, let's say, the staging or the development version on your local, you've gotten all the latest changes, you're up to date. um, we use Git. Best practice is check it, like branch off and create a new version, like call it whatever you want, Nick's new feature that he's working on. And at the start it's just a copy of the development version, but I'm saving all my changes there. I'm making all my changes there, and then best practices at the end of the day, copy my branch, my version, up to the Git repository, so it's there, as a backup in case something happens to my computer, or I don't know, tomorrow you come in and you say, Nick, you got to stop working on that feature, someone else is going to pick it up. Well, my version of the code is on the Git server, and whoever else is working on it can just grab the changes I already made.
Okay.
So best practice, yeah, in Git, when you save your changes and you push them up, it's called committing and pushing.
Committing and pushing.
Committing is saving your changes to the Git repository, and then you push your commits up to the general Git repo, to the Git server that everybody connects to.
Okay.
So, best practice, everyone always says, commit and push as often as you can. Better to have backups, I don't know, power outage in the middle of the day, power surge fries your computer.
Yeah, there you go.
But at the very least, best practice is once a day at the end of the day, especially if you're working on something big, push it up. Just in case something happens, it's there.
Yeah, it's the same price, right?
Yeah.
If you push 10 times a day or commit, is it push or commit? Commit.
It's both. You can commit 100 times and push once, or commit 100 times and push 100 times, and it's all up to you.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, you push your changes up so that your version of the project is also up there, and it's a backup. It's something happens to you, going back to our last live broadcast for the buzz factor, something happens to your dev, his stuff is there.
Yeah.
Hey, Nick, there's a question just popped up right now about pushing and pulling a commit, and they want to know the difference between pushing and pulling a commit. I don't know if you can answer that.
Okay, well, it's basically that. Pushing is taking whatever changes you've made and putting them on the remote Git server. And pulling is seeing if there's any changes that somebody else put, and you're taking them from the remote and adding them to your version on your computer.
Ah, okay. I even
Perfect. Thank
that
you.
One. That's good. So, that's another huge advantage of version control. And I say advantage of version control because don't forget, there's some people that don't even have version control for whatever reason. They're misinformed or just working with the wrong people. But so you kind of hit on the fact that if there's a problem, the code is on the dev server. The latest version of the code is on the dev server. So there's no running around like who has the latest version of the code, or there's a lot of changes on Nick's personal computer that he didn't commit. So that's huge, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely saved us some time.
Yeah.
I've experienced it in the past, like working with older sites and clients with older sites where they don't have version control, and everyone, once a feature is done, they just upload the code to their hosting server, and they just copy it there, and then they come back like a month later and go, hey, I have another change, but somebody else made some changes to our site, and then it's like, okay, well, now we got to recopy all the files and see which ones changed so that we don't lose anything somebody else did. Whereas if they were using Git, we would just be like, okay, they pushed all their new changes, let's just grab the latest version. It's already there.
Nice. I think there's also, and remind me to ask you how long it takes to set up proper version control. I'm gonna ask you that probably at the end though, so I don't lose track. Just hopefully
Okay.
I won't forget.
Spoiler: it's quick.
Oh, it's quick. Even better. So you've made your changes. I want to just keep it very basic so I can follow. So you've made your changes on your local computer. You've pushed it to the dev server / staging environment, staging area. Now you call the client and say, hey, I made my latest changes. Please go and make sure that they're fine with you. Client goes and checks it out. Everything's great. Now what?
Well, even like a step before that, it really depends how the client works. It could work exactly like you said, or we can put my changes on the development version, like combine everything together, which in Git is called merging.
Okay.
And then the client checks it out. But here's where like one of the real advantages of Git and a version control system helps is that, let's say me and somebody else were developing 2 new features, and we both had our own versions of the code, and we both pushed them up, and now somebody goes, okay, we want both versions in the development version. So he takes my code and he merges it into this staging version. So now all my changes are there. And then he takes the other developer stuff and he goes to merge it. Git will tell you, hey, both of you changed the same file and now there's a conflict. You both changed something at the same time. Do you want to look it over and see, do you want Nick's changes? Do you want the other guy's changes? Or do you want to mix of both? Like, do you want to manually edit this file before the combination is complete? And that just, it's a lifesaver. It prevents you from overwriting somebody else's changes. In that original scenario where I said where 2 guys just upload their file to their server and don't check with anybody else.
Oh, I think I understand what you mean. Yeah. Yeah, so when the second developer can override everything that you did.
Yeah, like
which
if
could
he
be a
just went,
disaster because you might have worked like a week on something and he worked an hour on something, but he has the version of the code before you did your week of work. And
Exactly.
he's just going to put it, oh boy, okay.
And if he just, copied his stuff and there was no version control and he just said, I don't feel like looking at what the differences are. Let me just grab this entire folder of files and put it, there you go. Everything's gone.
Okay, so that's a great point now. And this leads me to another point about the famous rolling back. let me see if I got this rolling back thing correctly. So let's say on November 1st, there's a certain version of the code on live production that's working fine, working perfectly. Then November 15th, okay, that's November 1st. Now November 15th, there's changes that are uploaded, November 30th, December 15th. Now all of a sudden, everything crashes, there's a problem. Correct me if I'm wrong, you can say, well, you know what, everything was, and again, this is just like an emergency thing, right? Websites crashed, nothing's working. You can actually roll back to a prior version when everything was working properly and temporarily go back to that version in order to save the day. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's right. You can do that. You can go back to any specific version of the code. Those commits we were talking about earlier, like every time you commit, that creates like just a history, let's say, and like for this commit, this is the version of the code. And at the next commit, that's the version of the code. And obviously, a rollback is a bit more complicated than just going back to that code. If there's database changes or anything else, but a quick overview, a quick simple, hey, we released yesterday and now everything's broken, no one can log in, but 2 days ago everybody was able to log in. You can say, let's go back to the version of code that was there 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And put that on the server while we figure out what went wrong.
Yeah, I've seen that actually happen over the years, over the past decade. I've seen that happen a few times where a rollback just, saved the day and let everyone just, figure out the problem, figure out the issue. And if
it's an emergency thing, but it can buy you the time you need. Especially when you're dealing with a client and the client's got a money-making site. You don't want it down.
Yeah. That's again, that's worth the price of admission. Just that, to have that. You got to have the proper version control set up, which believe it or not, I know for everyone at our company, it's just a normal good practice. But believe it or not, we still get people who are not set up that way, which is so scary. Can you, before I ask you how long it would take to set up the proper version control, can you share any like crazy events that have happened in the past 13 years with companies that are not set up properly, prospects that come to us that are not set up properly? Like, what is the worst setup you ever saw?
Oh, wow. I guess the worst, I honestly don't remember the company, but the worst was...
You don't have to mention any names.
No, I couldn't, even if I wanted to. I can't remember who it was. They had version control. Like, they had Git. Their project was originally on Git, but then they just stopped using it. So when they came to us, they gave us the access to their Git repo, and then we looked at the prod server, and literally every file had been changed manually, or like somebody had just uploaded a change to the server and not committed these changes to Git.
So they just bypassed it.
They just bypassed it, and like if we had not done due diligence and said, let's just double check and make sure the prod server has the latest version and everything's saved and committed, and just taken the company's word for it, and they're like, yeah, we use Git and everything's up to date. Somebody would have pushed the code, somebody would have made a change, pushed the code, and then gone to the prod server and gone, yeah, well, they use Git.
Oh, yeah, I see what you mean. That would have been horrible. So, like, the latest version that's on Git would have been pushed to production.
It was actually months behind what was on their prod server. People were just manually uploading files to their prod server.
Oh my gosh! What would happen if you didn't do your due diligence and you just made a quick change and pushed? would there be a way to recover all of those months and months of work, or would it be lost?
I mean, again, the beauty of Git would be like you would go on the prod server and you would try to pull these changes, and it would give you an error message right away saying, "Hey, no, you have unsaved changes on this server."
Oh, okay.
Like it would start, like you would literally have to be forcing everything and ignoring all the warnings and to overwrite that. And it's definitely not our practices. I could see. I want to say I can't see any developer doing it, but I'm sure there's someone out there who would just be like, nah, screw it, just ignore all the changes and overwrite everything.
Have you, sorry, excuse me, have you ever evaluated a potential client for SimplyPHP and seen a developer just making changes in production as a normal practice?
Like our side? Or
No, I mean, like, let's say you have a prospective client come and you speak to the developer and you say, okay, you know, are you on Git? And he says, no, I just make changes in prod. Does that ever happen?
it's happened.
Yeah.
And literally the first thing I suggest to whoever is asking me to look at the project is like, tell this client or this prospect to get on Git.
To get on Git.
Like,
Okay. Great
even if
segue.
even if the client isn't, it's our practice that when we grab a copy of that code, we're going to use Git for our development process.
Yeah, that's for sure. That we put that in practice several years ago, I think, Raf. We put that in, oh, was that like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe? Oh, even before that? Yeah. So we put that in practice that we won't work with a client unless they have a solid version control in place. Just because, you know, like an Uber driver saying, I won't take you anywhere unless you wear a seatbelt. It's the same thing. You know, I'm not putting that car in drive until you get your seatbelt on. It's the same thing with version control. That's the way I look at it. Kyler, before I ask Nick about how long it takes to set up Git and costs and associated, if you're still there, Kyler, any questions or comments in the feed?
Yeah, there's a few question and comments. I'll go with one about GitHub, as we're talking about that now. So one of the question is...
Can you say the names of the people that are asking too, if you don't mind?
Yeah, of course. So this is from Rico.
Rico.
He loves to come on our broadcasts. He wants to know on the client side, because a lot of the people who are developers know GitHub well. How do you set automatic URL updates so the client can see all the changes in the browser? And is there any way to improve this process? And this is for Nick.
Can we screen these questions next time?
We can get back to this too. If it is,
I'm not 100% sure what they're asking, but it's been a while since I really dug into GitHub itself and using some of like its features to display updates or use like continuous integration development. So I'm having trouble answering that one.
Yeah,
no problem.
No worries at all. So Rico, we can get back to your question, and I'll make sure I follow up with Nick or someone from the team to answer that.
We can block Rico. Just block him. Report him.
Another question, and this is something kind of off topic, but someone was asking, does PHP have a future in mobile development like hybrid apps? And just like to know our opinion if we have one on the topic.
I'll leave that one for you, Nick.
I don't know. I mean, I don't feel like PHP is going anywhere. People have been saying it's been dying for 20 years. So, and since the world is going towards hybrid apps and mobile apps, yeah, there's a chance it's got a life there.
Hybrid is more a web app type of thing. Yeah, it's used on smartphones, but it's not a native app.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mean, yeah, at that point you're just making a very responsive app that can be used on a phone, and I think PHP is still a great development tool, still a
yeah. In
great
that
development
case,
language.
since 80% of the web is built in PHP, I'm assuming that the answer is a big yes. Um, but we're not at Simply PHP. We're not really into mobile apps that much. We kind of got into app development maybe 7 or 8 years ago, but it's not something that we got a lot of demand for. And it's not something that we had that many resources for as well in Montreal at the time. So we decided, not to really get into it. Um, but when it comes to PHP, you know, for me the answer is always yes.
And the last kind of comment was from Rico again. Please don't block me.
Okay,
Well,
we'll
that's an
block.
update from the LinkedIn world.
So we won't block him, but we'll report him. How's that? No, Rico's awesome. He's awesome. He's great.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
totally joking. We're totally joking.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the question is now. Let's go to how long does it take, like time-wise, Nick? For example, obviously I know case-by-case basis. Every project is different. Small projects, medium projects, big projects. But to set up proper version control, since not everyone has it, it must cost a fortune, right?
Right. I mean, wrong. No, really, it costs nothing. Um, there are free hosting services out there for small business and personal where you have one project with one or two users who can have access to it to create Git repositories.
And this is GitHub or GitLab or
There's GitHub, there's Bitbucket, there's GitLab.
Bitbucket. Yeah. Okay.
Um, I mean, obviously, when you start getting to bigger projects and you want more users to have access and you want more repositories, uh, there's money to be paid because you're really using the system. But
Hmm.
one or
Yeah.
two
Let's
users
assume,
per
Nick. Let's
project,
assume. Let's assume that the business has money to pay. Obviously, because if they're on the web and they're working, they're obviously everything doesn't always have to be free. So there are some free small options out there, but I'm talking more about like how much time will it take a developer to set everything up so that it's working properly in following best practices.
um, I mean, let me give you two comparisons. Let's say
Yeah,
it's a new project, new code, talking a couple of minutes. You know, you
a
click
couple of
through.
minutes.
Yeah,
Okay.
you click through, you say new Git repository, new Git project, and it creates the repository for you, and then you know you you clone it, copy it onto your local so that you have that connection between your computer and the remote Git repository.
Mm-hmm.
And then there you go. You start building your project. You start, adding whatever files you need to add. You start um, adding frameworks. Let's say you're using Laravel. You start a new Laravel project. Commit your code, push it up, and there you go. Your first commit and your first piece of code is saved on the remote server.
All right. So there's no
And
excuse not to be set up like that.
like literally, it's that simple.
Okay.
To just create a new project and give someone access to it. Uh, I've used Bitbucket, GitHub, GitLab,
Which do you
all the
prefer? Is there a difference?
Um, I use GitLab the most just because that's what we use in house.
Okay. GitLab. Yeah.
But um, I like GitLab. I like Bitbucket. Uh, the user interface is very intuitive and easy to use. To create new project, add a user to the project. It's yeah, it's all very simple. It's not like you got to go and do a lot of stuff in command line, and you look like a hacker from a 1980s movie where you're typing a bunch of stuff into a terminal and trying to do all this stuff. And
Yeah.
no, it's point and click, and boom, new project, new repository.
Nice.
Same thing for Git, like itself. The all the actions we mentioned, the commits, the pushing. Obviously, you can do it from a terminal, a command line, but there are plenty of like applications out there that give you a user interface to do all those actions and simplify it for you. Um, and you know, the other scenario I mentioned was you already have an existing project and you
Mm-hmm.
have an existing code base.
Okay.
Again, through a lot of these point and click scenarios, though, one of the options will be create new project with empty repository, or create new project, and you already have the code somewhere. It'll let you know, it'll set it up a certain way, and then once you get it, you copy that, you clone that repository on your machine, so you have that connection that you can push your
Mm-hmm.
changes to. You just copy your project files in there. So instead of creating new files, you're just copying the existing ones, and you're gonna commit, you're gonna push, and there you go. All of a sudden, your project's backed up on a Git repository.
Okay, now here's my favorite part of the whole subject. Okay. How easy is it for a business owner to add and remove resources? Like, is he or she, the business owner, at the mercy of anyone, or is the business owner who owns the account able to, scale up, so add a couple of resources onto the project, or scale down, remove some people? Like, how does that system work?
Well, again, that's simple. It's um, first, and you mentioned a very good point. When you're creating this Git repository or this project, make sure that you, as the company owner, are the owner.
Okay. Yes, thank you. That is awesome. And how do you do that?
Um, you create it. You
Okay.
like even
You
if
sign up.
you're the most basic business owners and you don't have a sysadmin and you haven't found a developer yet, uh, let's say go to Bitbucket, create a new account. It's going to ask for your email, and then just create a new project, and it's your project.
All right. That is the most important thing out there, is to make sure that you as a business owner are the one who created the account, the one the account is in your company name. If there's a credit card, I guess there's a credit card. Even if it's free, there's probably a credit card step in there. It's your business credit card or your own personal credit card, right?
Yeah, make
Okay.
sure that you have access. That it's
Well,
the
you're,
same idea. Make sure
yeah,
that like if you had a house or a building, make sure that you're the one who has the keys.
yeah. Okay. And at that point, let's say you have 5 developers and, you're going to add 2 more. It's easy to do, right?
Yeah, there's easy to use point and click interfaces most of the time.
Okay.
I'm only saying most of the time because I haven't actually done it on every single site, but everyone I've used has it.
Good.
So, you go and you go give access or give permission or allow permission. Like, there's usually something very clearly named to let you know that you can give somebody permission to access this project.
Yeah.
And it's
Okay.
usually by search by username, search by email address, search by like an identifier. So you, as a business owner, you've created a project on Bitbucket. You have your account, and you go, I want to add Nick to it. Hey Nick, what's the email you use for Bitbucket?
Yeah.
And I give you that email, and you search it in. You go, okay, this is the user. Give him whatever level of access you want. That's the other beauty part of it, is you can give, let's say, a read-only access. You can give a high-level access to tell the person, yeah, they're allowed to make changes to the master branch, the production branch. They're allowed to make changes to, well, they're only allowed to push up new branches that people with higher levels of permission. They're the ones who can merge your changes into develop. Like, and a lot of it is very intuitive and very clearly marked. And if not, there's little help me links. It's come a long way from I don't know, years ago, where like it would be hidden behind so many different options, and you would literally need somebody who just knew how to do that.
Yeah, of course. So now the inverse can happen as well. You can remove access from whomever you like.
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah.
Correct. If, somebody leaves the project, or God forbid somebody is threatening you with something,
Yep.
we've seen that before. We've seen the hostile dev
Yep.
threaten with changes, or I'm gonna delete everything, and it's
Yeah, that's the main point is we've seen so much in the past where the actual Git repo that we're talking about now is in the name of someone other than the business owner. So, and they don't know, right? It's not their fault. So then they have to deal with the person who's got the keys. And if they want to let that long time developer go for whatever reason, sometimes things are not going well, and then all of a sudden the business owner finds out that, oh, I don't actually have the keys to my own business. The developer that I want to get rid of, or the developer that I want to break the relationship with, has all the keys. So we've seen some pretty uncomfortable situations. So this is the goal. The goal of this last 15, 20 minutes is to ensure that people realize that they need to be in control of their code base. They need to be in control of all their accounts, and they need to be the ones with the keys.
And that's exactly it.
And it sounds so easy. I feel like I can do it. I think this afternoon I'm gonna set up an account on GitLab.
I think a lot of it is just that people, non-technical people, are just like intimidated by it, and they're like, oh my God, this is just so complicated and so big. But yeah, it's a lot of steps, and there's a lot of things that you can do. But at the most basic and the most simplest parts of it, just to get started, is easy. It's small steps, and it's nothing complicated. It's not like step 1, choose a name for your project. Step 2, configure this to do that. Like, no, it's step 1, choose a name. Step 2, who do you want to give access to?
Yeah, exactly. So setting up, as a non-technical business owner, setting up the account is just like creating an account anywhere. Just same thing. Then you give access to your developer or developers and let them do what they want. Let them figure it out. But in the end, if you need to add anyone or remove anyone, it's always got to be the business owner or C-level exec or manager that does it, or the CTO, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. I should call out that we also, as a company, when we take on a new client, we check those things. We make sure that those things are actually happening. And if they're not, we call it out. So if we come onto a project and a client says, okay, I've already got a developer and this is his name, and we go into Git and see that it's not the client that's in charge of it, or not the client that owns it, we call it out and we make them change it. And we've never seen any problems at that point. The problem is when there's a internal problem with the company and you want to let a developer go or let someone go for whatever reason. We've seen some hostage situations, some hey, give me this amount of money and then I'll give you the keys type of things, which are not pleasant, and they can be avoided with a few clicks. So this is great. This has been a great conversation. Kyler, do you have any other amazing questions or comments before we wrap up?
Just one question that I've been holding on to, but it's around Git, and maybe this would be a good way to wrap things up. But someone asked, putting Git on could be expensive. What would be the best way to convince a client to, I guess, turn this on?
Whoa, well, we just proved that it's not expensive, right?
really doesn't have to be that expensive. I
Yeah.
mean, like in my head, I'm just so used to doing it now. Like any project has Git, any new project has Git, even any personal project has Git.
Yeah.
I've started tens of personal projects that I never really got far in, and just end up deleting the Git repository.
Yeah, that might be if someone does not want to use Git for whatever reason, or if someone doesn't want to use a solid version control, that might be something that they'll tell the client, you know, hey, yeah, it's just too expensive to do that. But in reality, all evidence to the contrary, it seems to be very easy to set up, right, Nick? Am I missing something here? We kind of covered
No,
it, but
seems to be it's very easy to set up. Most hosting sites for your website nowadays have Git or some other form of version control, so that if you want to deploy and push your code to production, the server already has ways to do it. Um, you know, I'm I'm having trouble if you can provide what examples would be so expensive, what would make it so
hmm
expensive, but I don't I don't see anything being very expensive, especially considering the trade-off of yeah, okay, there's a bit of time spent setting it up for Git, especially let's say when you want to like when I said it's simple to create a project, it's simple to put the code on Git. It might be like I said a bit more complicated to release to your production server using Git, but again nowadays most hosting servers make it simpler as well.
hmm
But it's nothing. We're not talking weeks of development time and weeks of technical debt. We're talking hours, maybe a day
yeah,
or two, like worst case scenario. And at that point, the level of protection it will give you for your site, for your business is definitely outweighs any initial cost of putting it on. I mean,
yeah, it's invaluable.
it's I don't see any way that it's a it's a good trade off. Like, no, I'm gonna save a bit by not having Git. Like, really, it's
Yeah, yeah, I gotcha. Okay, great. Kyler, anything else, my friend?
That's all the
All
questions that
good.
I can see on
Okay.
LinkedIn and a few comments. But yeah, awesome job, guys, and just a big thank you for being here, Nick, and just a great conversation. And yeah,
That's great. I think this is kind of stimulating me to think about maybe the next live we do, or in a couple weeks, we can maybe look over the Git interface. I think GitLab also is very interesting as far as a ticketing system, and anyway, we'll see. Maybe that'll be valuable for people to tune into. Um, we'll see how that goes. But in the meantime, hey, thank you, Nick. Thank you so much for carving out an hour for me today. I know you've had a busy week. I know you also like to do these things too. So but I really appreciate you coming to hang out with me for an hour and talking to a non-technical person about something that you've been working with for years now, and I really appreciate it.
thank you, no problem. It's my pleasure to be here. It's a lot of fun.
Cool. And Kyler, thank you, sir. You're doing great. We got to think of some ways to get the viewership up. Um, but everything's great so far. You're doing a fantastic job. I really love those micro clips that you post after these live broadcasts. I don't know. You'll probably get about 4 or 5 little micro clips from today's live. Eh? What do you think?
honestly, since we've been doing this, on average, I'm averaging 10, sometimes even like 15 micro clips. And those are one
Wow.
minute videos, 10-minute videos, like it just, and anything in between. And then with our graphic designer, we make also quotes and images from these as well. So we get like 30 pieces of content from 1 hour. of doing this. So it's
Wow.
helping my job, helping me
You
keep
get
my job.
you get 30 pieces of content from a 1 hour live broadcast on LinkedIn. That is great.
Yeah, it's really awesome. That's why we focus on the audio, the written, and the video, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
we can produce so much content. And these lives really help with that, right? So we're tackling all those different mediums for people, and whatever way they want to consume this, they can consume it the way they like.
Where are you? Where are we? Diffusing this. Like, so there's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, YouTube. What else?
So we have an audio version, which is any podcasting app. So Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and then there's like 15 different like platforms for audio. So we pretty much go across them all. Twitter is a big one. Instagram. We do have a TikTok and Twitch account, but our primary focus is LinkedIn. That is our central hub. So if you want to see our content, if you want to be a part of our community, that is the place to be. YouTube is also, I would say, the next space where we post a lot of our content, especially these micro clips.
So
And
every
then the
micro clip that
podcast.
you put out there, you also put out on YouTube as well, right? On our YouTube channel?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many
Yeah.
followers do we have on YouTube?
About 5,000, I believe, a little bit over that.
5,000. Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
And
We're
about
getting close to
10,000
the
on
10.
LinkedIn?
You got it. Yeah.
Nice.
It's growing slowly. But we really appreciate all you guys' questions, all you guys' comments. And yeah, if you have any suggestions or ideas, we're always looking to innovate and improve these for you guys and always bring value. So please feel free to connect with me or Tony. Send us a private message and we're happy to, chit chat and hear your idea.
Awesome. Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nick, again. And thank you, Kyler. And we'll see you all next week.
Awesome.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you guys so much. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye.